Good morning. My name is Catherine Graham, and I'll be your worship associate this morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Honolulu. We are a free religious community inspired by shared principles and a mission to boldly grow compassion, justice, and joy. We are not enamored of diversity or unity, but rather use each to strengthen the other toward a wholeness that enhances our capacity to fulfill our mission. You are welcome in this place. Before we begin our service, I'd like to bring your attention to a few announcements about the different things going on in our church. There's an insert in your order of service that says everything that's happening, so please be sure to read that. But also, I'd like to draw your attention to the fact that this afternoon, after this service, we are going to have our first meeting of a young adults UU group. So if you are between the ages of 18 and 35, please get a cup of coffee. We have a lot of wannabes here. Please get a cup of coffee and some refreshments and take it across the hall to the Fred Harper room and meet with Aaron Brown and Emily Carroll, who are going to convene this very exciting new group. Also, I'd like to let you know that we will be, in the next couple of weeks, Charlotte's going to be away, so if you have any announcements for the e-blast, please be sure to send them to the church office rather than to the usual email address. And the church office email address is office@unitariansofhigh.org. So just send anything you'd like everybody to know to that address. And I would like to also remind everybody that on May 18th, we are going to be celebrating our 60th anniversary as a Unitarian Universalist congregation. We're having a huge gala right here at the church with wonderful music by our great joyful noise group over here, and a great speaker, Ginny Coulter, who is the moderator of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and a terrific, all locally sourced luau, being coordinated by Sue Yamani Carpenter and Carla Allison and someone else whom I'm afraid I can't. And Karen, I'm sorry, and Karen Vlasic. Okay, and the tickets are being sold right next door in the gallery on the Poly after this service. So please be sure to go get your tickets today.
Whoa, yeah, yeah. Can you say that?
Whoa, yeah, yeah.
Whoa, yeah, yeah.
Whoa, yeah, yeah.
Whoa, yeah, yeah. Go ahead, one more time. Whoa, yeah. Good job, you guys down here. Whoa, yeah, yeah is it's kind of no-nonsense kind of syllables that come from Africa. But the guy who wrote this song wanted it to mean we are going. May is the month for transitions. We're graduating, we're finding new jobs, we're traveling, we're doing all kinds of fun things. And this is our confidence song for the month. And can you guys down here, can you say whoa, yeah, yeah, one more time? What is it? Awesome, awesome. I think they got it. So you follow them and you follow us. Can I get a traveling bass here? Do you hear the bass going traveling? Let's move along. And travel along. Here we go.
Are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know Him, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there.
So we light this chalice this morning as a symbol of our connection to each other. As Kali lights the chalice, we join our voices together. We light this chalice with the embers of compassion. We light this chalice with the torch of justice. We light this chalice with the radiance of joy. This story is called A Day at the Lawn. Has anybody ever gone to the lawn for the day? It sounds a little weird, doesn't it? Well, once upon a time, there was a girl named Wendy. This could be Wendy. She loved grass. What can I say? She just loved grass. She loved the feel of it between her toes. She loved the smell of it when it was freshly mown. She loved its great color. She loved to run in the grass. She just loved grass more than anything else. You get the idea, right? She really liked grass. Does anybody else here like grass? Good, okay. We have some other grass lovers. Good. Not that kind of grass, you guys. Okay. One day, her family decided to go to the beach. Wendy wasn't too sure about it because she'd never been to the beach before. Come on, said her older brother, we can go swimming. And we collect seashells together, said her mom. And you can bury me in the sand, said her dad. It sounded like fun. So they all piled into the car, and off they went to the beach. When they got there, it sure looked great, like nothing Wendy had ever seen. But when she first touched the sand, it was too hot. Oh, this isn't cool like grass, she said. I wish this sand was grass, she cried. Well, Wendy had a good luck fairy who followed her around. And he heard her wish and decided to grant it. So with a flash, all the sand turned into grass. Now it was her family's turn to not be too sure. Wendy, of course, was delighted. Well, I guess I won't get buried today, said Dad. That's okay, said Mom. Let's collect some seashells. So everyone went down to the water where it lapped against the edge of the grass, and there were polished rocks and some beautiful seashells lying about. They all set out to find the prettiest and the biggest and the most interesting, colorful one. Everyone except Wendy. Ouch, she said. Ooh, each. Ooh, the seashells hurt her feet. I wish these seashells were soft like grass, she thought to herself. And as soon as she did, what happened? It turned into grass again. That good luck fairy heard her thoughts as well as her words and made it so. The seashells all turned into grass. The family looked at one another. Well, they said, at least they're swimming. Everyone laid their beach towels on the grass and changed into their bathing suits. Last one in is a rotten egg, said her older brother, and he ran into the waves, followed closely by everyone else, except for Wendy. They went running into the water. Wendy followed tentatively, but when her toe touched the water, she said, ew, it's wet. Ooh, and it's cold. Oh, this time, the fairy didn't even have to think about it. The fairy went and changed it all into grass. Everybody turned to her and said, Wendy? But what were they to do? But her family was very understanding. They were, after all, Unitarian Universalists. So they decided to make the best of it. Okay, let's have lunch, said Mom and Dad. So they spread their picnic on the grass and put out a checkered tablecloth, and they set it all out. Wendy was in heaven. After all, didn't she love grass more than just about anything else? But she had to admit she was beginning to get a little bored. Something just didn't seem quite right. After all, everywhere she looked, there was nothing but grass. And all the sounds of the beach, the waves, the seagulls, it was all gone. Grass was nice, but maybe not so much when that's all there is. Well, said Mom, we went to the beach, and we're at the lawn. This isn't the way it's supposed to be. Well, what do you mean, Wendy asked. Her dad said, you made it all the same. The sand, the rocks, the water, the seashells, each was different, and you made them the same because their differences made you feel uncomfortable. But those differences also made them special and beautiful, and without them, there's a whole lot missing. In fact, everything that makes this place what it is missing. And that means that you are missing out on everything you came here for. Wendy thought about it for a little while. She did want to collect seashells. She had seen some really pretty ones, and the water was cold, but her brother and sister looked like they were having a lot of fun, and the idea of burying her dad in the sand was really too good to pass up. I wish it was all back the way it was, she thought, and luckily, the good luck fairy made it all come true. So Wendy and her family had the best day ever. She still loves grass more than just about anything, but she's learned to love other things too. And she's come across some things that she doesn't like much, and that's okay too. But she's never, ever wanted everything to be the same again, because she knows that things are supposed to be different, each thing as it is, and that exploring new things makes life so much more fun. The end. Let's make us a bridge over here so everybody can go under.
You shall go out with joy and be led forth with peace. The mountains and the hills will break forth before you. There'll be shouts of joy, and all the trees of the field will clap their hands. And all the trees of the field shall laugh. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Our speaker this morning is Rabbi Peter Schaktman, and he came to Honolulu in September of 2005 to serve as the interim rabbi of Temple Emmanuel, and then in 2006 he became the congregation's permanent spiritual leader and continued in that role until this past September. Rabbi Schaktman received his rabbinic ordination from the New York campus of the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion in 1989. Since that time, the heart of his work has been as a congregational rabbi. He has served congregations in Houston, Texas, Lake Charles, Louisiana, Staten Island, New York, Livingston Manor, New York, and here in Honolulu. He also spent 9 years working on the staff of the Union for Reform Judaism at their headquarters in Manhattan as a regional and national consultant in program development, synagogue management, and the special needs of small congregations. Rabbi Schaktman is a proud graduate of Oberlin College and is certified in chemical dependency and spiritual counseling. Prior to becoming a rabbi, he also spent 2 years living in an Israeli Arab village as a community worker in Arab-Jewish relations. Whether in sacred worship or in a classroom, in committee meetings or youth group events, or his pastoral work, the central goal of his rabbinate has been to study, to teach, and to help others find meaning in their lives. And this morning, he's going to try to help us find some meaning in our lives.
It really is wonderful to get applause before you even begin. I'll try to live up to it. So it's a pleasure to be here. For as long as I can remember, I have been blessed with a good sense of direction. My mother loves to tell stories about how I, as a child, could help her find her way when she got lost driving around neighborhoods that were unfamiliar to both of us. As I got older, my sense of direction seemed to get even better, and throughout my adult life, I've often even surprised myself with my directional intuition. I don't quite understand how I know where to go. I just do. My sense of direction is not perfect, of course, and I've gotten what among my people is known as verblunget, that is, lost and confused, many, many times. But lo and behold, some years ago, the significance of my particular skill set and my need to use it became far less with the introduction of and proliferation of, smartphones. This is my smartphone. It's an Android. And we've actually become quite close. But needless to say, the relationship will come to a sudden and cold-hearted end as soon as my contract is up and my wireless company offers me the opportunity to buy a newer and better equipped model. Such, alas, is the sad state of cell phone romances. As you might have guessed, the reason why I'm no longer valued as a navigator is because my phone, like most of yours, I'm guessing, has an app for maps and directions. And I'm not ashamed to admit that I find this app both amazing and very useful. Don't you? I mean, you tell the phone where you want to go, and it tells you how to get there, whether you want to travel by car, by public transportation, or by foot. You don't even need to know the address, right? You can just put in the place name or the restaurant or whatever, and it tells us the best way to get there. It can even talk us through the trip verbally. When I was in the mainland a few years ago, I decided to have a little fun with it. And I asked for driving directions to my home in Hawaii, just to see what it would do. It gave me detailed directions to a pier in San Francisco. It's true. Then continued by telling me to get in a kayak and paddle to Honolulu, and then finished with directions from the beach to my home. I was so impressed with the resourcefulness of this amazing app that I decided to push it a few steps further. In the endpoint box, I typed the word success. Then I tried fulfillment. Then happiness. Finally, meaning. And what came back? Well, nothing particularly useful. And I had to face the sad fact that my beloved smartphone was not quite smart enough to navigate my life's journey for me, and that there really was no app available for such a purpose. But wouldn't it be great if there were? I mean, wouldn't it be great if someone or something could give us reliable guidance regarding the course of our lives? One of the features of my phone app is that it starts by figuring out, without my telling it, what my starting point is. I would be satisfied even if my imaginary life journey app could tell me that much. Because sometimes knowing where we are right now is even harder than figuring out where we're going. Okay, I'm going to say it. I want directions. I want a map. I want a voice telling me what to do and then recalculating non-judgmentally when I either make a mistake or deliberately go off course. Where the heck is that app? Well, needless to say, it doesn't exist, and it's not likely to be created anytime soon. Oh well, but that doesn't mean that we have to remain lost and adrift as we ponder the road ahead. This morning, I want to share with you a couple of lenses through which we might consider the journey that is our life, and a few thoughts about how we might approach the navigational challenges of that voyage. We begin, like my phone app does, by identifying our starting point. For many of us, that starting point has been the expectation that our life plan, if you will naturally lead us towards security, happiness, and financial prosperity. And perhaps for some of us, that's what has happened or seems to be happening now. But I'm guessing that there are lots of us for whom that autopilot function has not necessarily taken us where we expected or wanted to go, but rather to places at the very least unfamiliar, and in some places undesired. Pamela McLean and Frederick Hudson, co-founders of the Hudson Institute in Santa Barbara, California, suggest that part of the reason this has occurred is that far too many of us grew up living our lives according to 4 ideas or rules that might have made sense at one point in our society, but that have since become outdated, obsolete, and distracting. Many of us, for example, received and have probably passed on to others the assurance that if we are honest, if we play the game of life by the established rules, if we work hard, we will get where we want and need to go. All we need to do is identify and follow the rules prescribed by our culture, and our lives, our careers, our pocketbooks will get better and better. Those who choose to take a different route than prescribed are, in keeping with the metaphor, considered to have gone a bit off course. This is what is known as the linear rule. Challenge, of course, is that our lives are no longer linear, but rather circular or perhaps spiral. They have seasons, even for those of us living in Hawaii, that give us the opportunity for ongoing renewal. The frame for understanding has shifted from looking for cumulative accomplishments over an extended period of time to something more like chapters in a long book. A new chapter is written every time we do something important. Then our lives come apart a little, or maybe a lot. We veer a bit off track, and we transition to a new chapter of life. As understood by the circular rule, life does not get better or worse, but rather different, as it forms and reforms chapter after chapter. Another idea that we need to look at again is the assumption that our personal life is ultimately defined and determined by the world around us. Our communities, our families, our work systems, our politics, the economy, things like that. Few of us, and perhaps this is less true for the younger among us, but I'm not so sure that's even true. Few of us ever spent a great deal of time doing life planning. We thought that our lives were, to a large extent, planned by the world around us. Success would come if we followed the advice offered by the systems around us, which we saw as more stable, more permanent, and more reliable than ourselves. Compare that way of outside-in thinking with the very different way of living our lives from the inside out. That is, we begin from the inside, from who and what we are, from finding that holy spark within ourselves and following it toward a sense of purpose and purposefulness. When we begin to manage our lives from the inside out, we seek to align our inner values and beliefs with the commitments we make and the roles we take on. We become, in the lingo of family systems thinking, self-differentiated. A third significant change has occurred in the way in which we view the role of learning in our society. In the linear world of the 20th century, learning was the province of children and young adults. Young children and young people. And its primary purpose was launching them, that is us, into adulthood. Our priority to launching us into stable adult careers, family life, and leadership roles. Having been so launched into adulthood, our priority shifted from learning to work. Many in our generation assumed that there was little need to learn new skills or competencies. We learned when we were young and then just used what we learned in deeper and more complex ways. Now, more and more of us understand that learning is truly a lifelong process, and indeed the key to staying awake as an adult. In reality, whether or not we find ways to keep on learning and growing and expanding constitutes the difference between our being proactive or reactive, between being empowered and being passive. And finally, what McLean and Hudson refer to as the steady state versus the continuous change rule. The steady state rules go something like this. Hard work brings us to the steady state or plateau of security for the rest of our lives. Right. I mean, well, maybe that was true once, but at least for some folks. But it sure isn't the case anymore. Today, we are more and more coming to get that our life journeys are not about finding static resting places, but are marked by ongoing, continuous, organic, sometimes frightening and often exciting change. As McLean reminds us so eloquently, navigating the journey has become more important than the destination, since all arrivals are temporary. The poet Yehuda Amichai wrote, in translation, "And what is my lifespan? I'm like a man gone out of Egypt. The Red Sea parts, I cross on dry land. 2 walls of water on my right and on my left. Pharaoh's army and his horsemen behind me. Before me the desert. Perhaps the promised land too. That is my lifespan." Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav, a Hasidic Rebbe, taught that the ancient Israelites in the Torah had no real idea where they were going when they left Egypt, but they knew they couldn't remain where they were. They were slaves, productive but not creative, secure but not free, busy fulfilling a purpose that was not their own. We regularly get caught in a variety of similar slaveries, don't we? That sap our spirit and make us forget that we are even enslaved. As another scholar has written, the worst slavery of all is when we learn to endure it, when we no longer even realize that we are enslaved. The ancient Israelites wandered through the wilderness on a convoluted and often surprising trek that eventually led them to the land of promise. The route they took was indirect. There were lots of stops and starts. There was lots of staying in one place a long time, what we today refer to as static progress. And there was a building of a tabernacle in the wilderness, which we might understand today as the beginning to experiment with change prior to and in preparation for arrival. And then, upon reaching the land of promise, they discovered that their journey had, in a real sense, only just begun. Our lives are full of transitions, some of which we anticipate and even seek, and others that we don't even recognize until after they occur. All offer us opportunities for learning, but we are wise to recall that while change is inevitable, growth is optional. May each of us find the courage to embrace the changes in our lives, whether planned or unplanned, and find in each new chapter of our ongoing story many opportunities to grow and flourish. Thank you.